Shalom, shalom. David Sparkowich here with myhebrewmentor.com. I want to welcome all of you back to my channel. Special warm welcome to all of those who are new subscribers in this last week here, or those that are considering being a subscriber. You want to learn how to read the Hebrew Bible with excellence and not spend 10, 15, or 20 years of your life. You've come to the right place. myhebrewmentor.com, we will take you from Hebrew drudgery to Hebrew delight in a very short period of time. So I want to encourage you today to hang with me till the end of this instructional video. We'll be covering the second lesson on Hebrew syllables. Hang with me till the end. I've got a very special offer, something that's free. It is worth quite a bit of money. There's a lot of value there. You have the opportunity to register for my freemium Hebrew language sampler, and that will be delivered instantly to your inbox and give you a complimentary taste of what I've been working on for the past couple of years here, myhebrewmentor.com. An out-of-the-box approach to Hebrew reading and Hebrew grammar that capitalizes on the essentials and gets you right into the text of the Torah right from the start. Almost all of my digital products have live mentoring components built into them, and that's what really sets me apart from just about everything else that's out there. I mean, who's going to give you personal time when you buy a digital product, actually meet with you one-on-one and work through the product with you and lead you and guide you all the way to the summit? I haven't found anybody else. It's an unusual feature. Well, let's jump into our lesson today. Okay, so here's the placard that we spent a bit of time in on Syllables 1, the first syllables lesson that I gave, and I was attempting to impress on you the importance of mastering the art of syllabification. I know that's a long word, but the art of breaking Hebrew words down to their most basic components. I shouldn't say they're most basic. I understand. We've got letters, we've got vowels. The next step up from letters and vowels is to master the ability to pronounce the syllables and divide them up correctly in the right manner. And if you can do that, the next step will be pronouncing Hebrew words correctly with their stress on the right syllable. And then we move on to phrases, sentences, etc. from there. And so I'd like to take half a step back in today's lesson, and I'd like to demonstrate for you exactly how we got to our last lesson. So how did I determine where to break the words into actual syllables? It's not hocus pocus. It's all based on rules. There's actually 5 rules of syllables, and we're going to be covering those, spend a little bit of time on each rule, and then give you the examples from Genesis 13:1, and if the examples can't be found there, I will point you to other places in the Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures. We're calling this Sparky's 5 laws of Hebrew syllables, and the way I teach syllables slightly deviates from all of the grammars that are out there. I've got my rhyme and reason. Oftentimes the way syllables are presented, especially when you run into the Dagesh, it can get pretty darn confusing and leave most brand new Hebrew students completely in the dust wondering what happened. And so we're going to avoid all of that mishigas, all of that confusion, and we're going to take the shortcut. So let's look at law number 1. Let's read it together. Law number 1 states that a syllable will always and only begin with one consonant. Okay, once you say that with me, a syllable must begin with one consonant. There's really only one exception to this rule. That exception would be the presence of the shurek, which I'm drawing a green box around right now at the bottom right of the screen. So the shurek is the exception to the rule. Shurek is a Hebrew vowel, affectionately referred to the rack that holds the shoes in my home. I've got lots of kids. I've had 6 kids, and believe me, 6 kids times, I don't know, how many pairs of shoes does the average kid have? 6, 10? That's a lot of shoes, and you need a lot of racks. And so whenever I pass the shoe rack, my kids are used to me stating that Shurak is a Hebrew vowel. This Shurak, being a Hebrew vowel, it violates the rule that a syllable will always and only begin with one consonant. So in this case, this first word is pronounced Ula Avram, Ula Avram, and for Abram. So the Shurak really, when it comes at the beginning of a word, it represents a syllable in and of itself. That being said, let's turn to Genesis 13:1, and let's test the law number 1 of the syllable, and see if it's true. See if it works. Or remember when you were a child having your mom or your dad fit you for a new pair of shoes in the store, and sometimes that pair of shoes didn't quite fit so good. And so we want to actually test each of these laws to see, is it true? Does it fit? It helps us to actually see the truthfulness of these laws demonstrated in real time with an actual pasuk, a Hebrew verse. So let's take a look at the first word. This is pronounced vaya'al. You can see as the syllables have already been divided up ahead of time, First syllable is va, a vav with a patak beneath it. So last time I checked, vav is actually a consonant. So this syllable begins with a consonant. Ding. So the rule is true for that. Next one, yod with a patak beneath it is pronounced ya. Ya. Yod is a Hebrew consonant. So is the law true? Ding, it's true. Next syllable begins with the Hebrew letter ein. Now that happens to be a silent consonant, ein. Nonetheless, it is a consonant. And so this third syllable in the word vaya'al begins with the consonant ein, is followed by a vowel patak down below. And then it ends with a lamed. So it begins with a consonant, ends with a consonant. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more of these words. What about the syllable av? Begins with an aleph, that's a consonant. Ram begins with a resh, that's a consonant. Next word begins with a mem, consonant. Begins with a mem, it's a consonant. Begins with a resh, it's a consonant. Begins with a yod, it's a consonant. So law number one has been proven to be true. And if I take the time to do the rest of the pasuk, we would find in every instance, because there's no shureks that are starting words in this pasuk, in every instance, we'd find that law one is true. Okay, let's move on to law number two. Okay, law number two, you can read it with me. A syllable may end with either a consonant or a vowel. So either or, completely legitimate. Now, if it ends with a consonant, it is said to be closed. If it ends with a vowel, it is said to be open. I'll demonstrate this in the very next placard. The illustration I love to give my students is that of a sandwich. We've all had the opportunity to make ourselves a sandwich or make someone else a sandwich. Sandwich typically has a slice of bread on the bottom, a slice of bread on the top, and then something hiding in the middle. And I'll let you decide what you want to put in the middle of your sandwich. And so the sandwich is a beautiful illustration of a syllable that is closed, a closed syllable. A closed syllable begins with a consonant. That's the top slice of bread. It has a vowel in the middle. That's whatever you put in your sandwich. And then it ends with a consonant, which would be the second slice of bread on the bottom. Closed syllable resembles a sandwich. An open syllable is going to resemble, you could call it an open sandwich, or you could call it just a slice of bread with something on it, like a piece of toast with some jam on it. That would be a beautiful illustration or picture of an open syllable. I've taken the time to annotate the first line of text here. Vaya'al Avram Mitzrayim hu, and there is either an O for open or a C for closed. So we're going to look at the second syllable, which is ya, and that is an open syllable. Why is it open? It is open because it begins with a consonant. It's followed by a vowel, and then there's nothing, the back door is wide open. It's not closed. That's an open syllable. The closed syllable with the green C for close begins with a consonant ein, ends with a consonant lamed, and it's got a patak in the middle. Patak slightly obscured by the ein just because of, I love the fonts, but this particular font sometimes can trespass on the ground that belongs to the vowels. But I love it so much, I don't want to give it up. It's a great font. All right, next word. We've got Avram, the name of our patriarch, Abraham. We've got two closed syllables. Why are they closed? First one begins with an aleph, ends with a vet, has a patak vowel hiding in the middle. Next syllable begins with a resh, ends with a mem sofit, a final mem form. And it has a kametz or kamatz tucked in between the two consonants. So I will let you could even pause this video if you'd like to. I'd encourage you to pause the video actually and do this on your own. See how many of these you can actually label on your own for yourself and see how you do. Let's move on to our next law, rule or law number three. Rule number three states, read this with me, a syllable will always have one and only one vowel. Everybody repeat after me. A syllable, a Hebrew syllable, can only have one vowel, not two vowels. Never has two vowels. So whether it be a short vowel or a long vowel does not really matter. And I realize the shva is not typically called a vowel, but it can behave as if it were a vowel when it is a vocal shva. And so you will see syllables that just have a shva only and no other vowel. And so when it's a vocal shva, that is assumed like it's acting as if it had a vowel. Let's go back to our proof text, Genesis 13:1. Let's test the law. Syllable will always have one and only one vowel. Let's start with line number 2. give ourselves a fresh verse to play with. The first word is va'ishto. The first syllable does in fact have a shva. It's a vocal shva, va. Va'ishto. The shva is behaving in the capacity as if it were a vowel. Next syllable is pronounced ish. This shva happens to be a silent shva. Ish has one vowel, the hirik. Hirik says e. Finally, we have the syllable to. So this is a cholam malay. A full cholam makes the O sound. Let's try the word on down at the end of the second line. This is pronounced velot, velot. So the shva operates in the capacity of a vowel. And that syllable says va. And then lot is a closed syllable. And another example of the cholam malay, the full cholam, just tucked in between the lamed and the tet. Velot. And Lot. Lot was Avram's nephew. Moving on to rule number 4. Law number 4, short and sweet. Once you read this with me, a syllable may be stressed or unstressed. This pertains to where the stress marker will occur on any given word. As in English and really just about any other language, some syllable is going to get the stress. Now, I know in English, we're used to putting the stress many times on the first syllable or the second syllable, not typically on the last syllable, but with biblical Hebrew, it is just the opposite. It is most typically the stress is placed on the last syllable of a word. So we sort of have some unlearning to do if you were raised in an English-speaking home and that's your first language. Your default is going to be to stress words automatically on the first syllable. And this is not the case with most Hebrew words. So I've taken the time here as we test law or rule number 4, which states that a syllable can have a stress on it or it may not have stress on it. Either one is fine. I've circled the stress markers. These were created by the Masoretic scribes between the 5th and 10th centuries. These are the ones that we owe a debt of gratitude that actually preserve the words of the living God, painstakingly preserved them, and created a system so that the correct pronunciation of the Hebrew of God's word would not fall into the abyss and be lost forever. And so I've circled all of the Hebrew diacritical markers, which on the most basic level, they're stress markers. They also mean a couple other things, and I don't have the time today to get into that, but I will be providing lessons in the future, which will do a deep dive into the diacritical markings of the sages and decipher those. Let's try reading the second line of text here, putting the stress in the correct place. Va'ishto. Va'ishto. So it's not va'ishto, it's not va'ishto, it's va'ishto, and his wife. Next word. It is a hyphenated word, and so the scribes that put the hyphens in there, the hyphens are called makef. They intend for us to read this as if it were one word. We have compound words in English as well. So this word would be pronounced v'chol asher lo. Why don't you repeat that after me? V'chol asher lo. And it means, and everything, or all which was to him, all that belonged to him. V'chol asher lo. So it's got the stress on the word lo with the blue circle here. So I think you get the point. Syllables can have stress, but they don't have to have stress. So a syllable can have a stress marker or not. It's perfectly fine either way. Final rule is rule number 5. Rule number 5 states, and you could read this with me if you'd like to, a syllable can in some instances have 2 consonants back to back without an intervening vowel. So it kind of seems to break the symmetry of consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. This is more exceptional, but I just want you to be aware of this can actually happen. Now, it does not occur in Genesis 13:1, so I have to pull from another verse, Genesis 13, verse 9, to demonstrate 2 consonants back to back without an intervening vowel. Kind of violates the illustration of the sandwich that I just gave you, but again, this is non-typical, but it is possible. So here I draw your attention to the word hasamol. If you try saying that with me, hasamol. Hasamol. Hasamol means the left hand. And unmistakably, we hear in the final syllable, the syllable that gets the stress, the syllable is pronounced mol. Mol. Mem cholam chaser, weak cholam. That little dot to the upper left of the mem says O, it's a vowel. And we have aleph, which is consonant, followed by lamed, which is consonant. Now, even without the aleph, this would still be pronounced mol. So the aleph really doesn't lend any help. It doesn't add anything to it, but it is part of the word. Hasamol, the left hand. So I hope you have enjoyed this second lesson on syllables. We'll be moving on in our next lesson to other important exercises that will greatly reduce the time it takes for you to learn how to read biblical Hebrew. As I've said many times, most Hebrew classes, they dive too deep too quickly, and they feel they have to in order to finish the textbook in time for semester's end or year's end. And unfortunately, over 95% of all of the folks who take those classes have fairly weak Hebrew reading skills. Even after spending all the money, doing all the work, it's incredibly exasperating and even demoralizing. So I'm here to help you if you have experienced that frustration and that drudgery and you feel like you would like to get the fruit from all of your labors. I'm here to show you the way that you can reap the fruit rather quickly by focusing on the essentials of the faith, so to speak, the essentials of biblical Hebrew, and not skirting around them or flying over them. Now, before jumping onto the next YouTube video, I would strongly encourage you to take 10 seconds to raise your awareness about my free offer. Yes, it's the freemium Hebrew sampler pack. So go to myhebrewmentor.com/offer, myhebrewmentor.com/offer. Enter in your name and your email address, and you will get instant access to the freemium Hebrew sampler from myhebrewmentor.com. Bless you guys. Shalom, shalom. Lahitraot. We'll see you real soon. Bye now.